All right, we're back again, digging for wisdom. Time for week 10 of the football season. Professor Diggs is over there. Wiz is over here. We're getting ready. We're getting ready for more playoff action, or not playoff action, but action that will help us come up with the playoffs. Because what we saw last week was just wildness, especially on Thursday. I know you sent me a text while I was trying to get some editing done and how 5 games ended within like 5 to 10 minutes of each other, and all in some kind of crazy dramatic fashion. And it was just a wild Thursday night. It kind of continued a little bit into Friday as you saw that wild game over at the Mound Showdown. I saw that one where they had the little onside kick and came back. It was back and forth there. Alito again toying with losing their little 100 million year winning streak, district winning streak, and then they're like, nah, don't worry about that. We'll go ahead and take care of it at the end here. Obviously, your game that you went to didn't turn out the way you liked, but there's still some fun action. Talk about that wild week, or especially that wild Thursday night, and what you saw as you were following it on Twitter and watching your Skyline Waxahachie game.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things that it just had like one of those ESPN moments where you got all the like 9:52, and you start piecing together little highlights. I had a coach who was at the Garland Lakeview Centennial game. He told me, he's like, Diggs, we're done. Like, Garland's got the ball like at the 10-yard line. They're about to just kneel it. As long as nothing stupid happens, they've got the game. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And then all of a sudden, I'm watching Skyline and Waxahachie. It looks like Waxahachie's just putting it away. They go up 13-6. Like, okay. And then Skyline gets the ball. They start to drive, and all of a sudden, Diggs is like, or my coaching friend is like, Diggs, we got the ball back. I don't know if we're gonna be able to do anything with it. And then I'm seeing Wakeland over here and Lone Star. Wakeland was up by like 14 with like 5 minutes left in the game, and we're feeling okay. And then all of a sudden they get a safety, and you're like, safety, why are they giving up safeties now? We're up 12. They're still pretty good there. And then it's just like every little piece going. All of a sudden, Garland hits a Hail Mary. Lakeview Centennial hits a Hail Mary in that game. It was like a tip drill kind of a thing at the back of the end zone. They score a touchdown. Now we're going to overtime. Skyline makes a couple of big plays. They go to overtime. All of a sudden, Lone Star gets a couple of touchdowns, and they're up by 3. Like, Lone Star does this every week. It seems like, Ward. They're good. They got them right where they want them. They're up on Wakeland. Wakeland's done, and then it just keeps going and going and going, and all of a sudden, then Wakeland hits a field goal, and then all of a sudden, Skyline's about to win the game, and they miss the 20-yard field goal, and now we're in overtime in Garland, and Lakeview Centennial scores a touchdown, but then they get their 3rd extra point of the game blocked. Ward, how do you get 3 extra points blocked?
No idea.
3. Can't do that, Ward. And one of them, Garland took back for 2. I mean, this was a game that was 33-32 at the end of the day, but like it was 5 touchdowns from 4 touchdowns. How do you do that? The math doesn't work there, Ward. But this happens sometimes. And then all of a sudden, you told me Wakeland got stopped. They're done. You're like, we're burying them again. Here comes Lone Star. They're about to score the game.
Set up for a field goal. We'll call it.
Just call it a day. Maybe 42 yards is the first play. Just don't let anything bad happen, Ward, because nothing bad can happen when that sort of thing happens. Then all of a sudden, Waxahachie's got to kick a walk-off field goal after Skyline misses 2 field goals. And I love Coach Coleman, so poor kicker, man. I can't even imagine. What do you say to the kicker? Because he trusted his kicker. This was a situation where Skyline just shut it down and said, 20-yard field goal, we got this, and I bet 99% of the time in practice, he does have that. But, the yips, Ward, the yips happen every now and then.
You don't normally see that in Dallas ISD. A lot of DISD teams go for 2 down there. They don't have that faith, so you really have to have faith in your kicker to like you're saying, shut it down, be like, all right, he's just going to knock it through here, and we'll be good.
Then all of a sudden, it looks like Lone Star is about to punch in that winning touchdown. You take us there because you were there. Like, what were you seeing? What was your thought? I mean, did you even believe what you were seeing at first?
Exactly. You don't believe it because as you're seeing the replay, he busted up. It's like, okay, if he gets in, that's fine. But he's just trying to get down to the 2 or 1 and get a nice little chip shot field goal. All of a sudden, it's a big pile of nothing. And 2 seconds later, that nothing turns into one guy pulling around and taking off the other way. I'm like, This can't be real. I mean, forward progress must have been stopped. There couldn't have been a fumble. I'd look around for flags. I almost stopped shooting. I was like, should I shoot or should I look for flags? I kept shooting, and it counted. I mean, he took it all the way back. You just don't see those things. It's wild.
And then in Fort Worth, you had Fort Worth Pascal versus OD Wyatt, and Pascal got up big on Wyatt, and then Wyatt gets a big stop, and they start driving, and then Pascal blocks a field goal to get them into the playoffs. It was a crazy 9:52 to about 10:02 p.m. Ward, and you were there. I was there. You know, we had Skyline game going on. We had the Frisco game going on. We had Garland. We had Fort Worth. It was just crazy. And somebody alerted to me this word. I didn't even know it, and I posted it on Twitter. But the same exact ending almost happened at the Rockwell Heath and Longview game on Friday night. Rockwell Heath was up on Longview. They're up by 1. They're about to go up by 8 with like 3 minutes left. He was about to score. Same thing. Strip in a pile. The Longview guy took it back. All of a sudden, Longview wins that game.
It's wild. And the funny thing is the crazy endings. Not that I don't doubt that anybody that's watched this, it trickled down to Houston as well for Friday night, because Houston, we had the same freaking thing. We had the major matchup. There's 2 major matchups. The small school one between Hitchcock and Columbus went to overtime. Hitchcock scored first, and Columbus got it. Their quarterback that's going to TCU, Adam Schobel, he's going backwards. He's going the other way on 4th down. It was 4th and 10. By the time he stopped backing up, it was 4th and 30 because everybody's chasing him. He chucks it all the way the length of the field for a touchdown, and they decide to go for 2 and don't get it. So Hitchcock ends up winning by a point. Then you got the Atascocita North Shore game that everybody was watching, and Atascocita had that game the whole game. The whole game they were winning, just like the Lone Star one. I'm like, okay, finally. They're going to stop this 8-game beating they take from North Shore. They get beat twice a year for 4 years. And North Shore throws a pass 30 yards. The guy's on his back. It falls off of the Atascocita's guy back. He tips it up in the air, pulls it down, and catches it at the 5-yard line. When it was 4th down, it should have just hit the ground. It didn't. And they score with 6 seconds left to win that one. And then, of course, there's a 3 overtime game between Barbers Hill and Galveston Ball. But you know all about Barbers Hill playing those lengthy games as they did with Richland. They ended up pulling that one out. It was just a wild day, week all up and down Texas, it seems like.
And relevant to both of our areas, the merger of our area, from what I understand, P&G lost, which means I think we got a P&G versus South Oak Cliff now calibration to the 2nd round of the playoffs instead of the 4th round of the playoffs. So it is just absolutely crazy. All the amazing endings. And Aledo Richland had a great ending. It looked like Richland was finally going to break the streak. And a couple people said this to me, Ward, and I believe this to be true as well. It seems like with Richland, they would have had the courage to go for 2 when it was 42-41 to not even send it to overtime. But they just kicked the extra point, and then they lost in overtime. They got to go for 2 right there, Ward. Come on.
They have to. I would have kicked the extra point in the Hitchcock-Columbus game, but in this one, when you're on the road and you're playing a team that hasn't lost a district game in 120, make them lose it with your best 2-point play. And you have some because you throw it every single down since Turner got hurt. You have some sort of crafty little 2-point conversion. I would have ran it there, yes. And all this really does for us is it gets us all confused of what's going on in the playoffs in some of these districts. Talk to me about let's start with we usually start in 6A, but let's start in the 5A Division I, because that Wakeland game kind of shook things up in that district. Am I right?
It did. I mean, all of a sudden, and the last 2 weeks, if you look at this, we were kind of putting Lone Star almost lost to Frisco 2 weeks ago, and we're thinking to ourselves, that's a little bit weird. And then, Frisco Reedy the very next week, they almost lose their game. And that's a little bit weird. And then last week, we had Frisco Lone Star actually lose their game. And Reedy was down pretty much the whole game. And they finally come back and win that game late. And now all of a sudden, McKinney North is looking at having to play Frisco Heritage and play Frisco the last 2 weeks. I don't know if you want to see either of these teams right now. So Frisco Wakeland, despite the fact that they can only get 3rd or 4th in this district, they're in because they haven't had their bye week. They play Sherman. But if you remember a couple, I think it was last season or 2 seasons ago, Wakeland lost to Sherman. Like it was an improbable game. Sherman was like a 30-point underdog, and they lose that game. So I know Wakeland is going to be dialed in for this game because of what happened in that Sherman game in a previous season. But Wakeland is it. This is their last game. They get 2 weeks before their bye week, before the playoffs. So if they win this, they're going to be 6-2. They're pretty much in. But now you got Reedy, who can potentially drop down to 2 losses. You got Lone Star, who can potentially drop down to 2 losses. You got McKinney North sitting at 2 losses, who's got Frisco and Frisco Heritage, to where all of a sudden they're at risk. 5-5AD1 has a situation now where McKinney North, our slotted number 3 team, could fall all the way out of the playoffs, and the ghost of Jackson Verowick will not leave us, Ward. We cannot kill Frisco. They are back.
Exactly.
I can see they have a way to get into the playoffs now, but they got to beat Frisco Reedy and they got to beat McKinney North. But right now, who's to say they can't? I mean, the way that this district is going.
It's crazy. You got 5 or 6 Frisco teams over there trying to pull the plug out of the life support system of Frisco, and as soon as they leave the room, somebody else is plugging it back in for them, and all of a sudden they're left with a crucial game here against Reedy, which on Thursday, which we'll talk about later. But the way Reedy's been playing, it's been a couple games where they have to score a couple touchdowns late in the game just to get their wins. Yes, they're getting their wins, but it's at some point you're testing that thing too much, and all of a sudden you don't get that win, and now all of a sudden Verowick's going to drive up here from Austin and say, "I told you, Diggs, where do you live? I'm going to tell you right to your face." And crazy things are happening in H6A too, because it was only a couple weeks ago I was very upset with you for not letting me put Arlington against Bowie on the schedule to talk about. Now, 2 weeks later, I don't want to talk about Arlington at all. They've given up 70 points. I don't even want to speak on them. I knew you didn't want to speak on them 2 weeks ago. I don't want to talk about them right now. What's going on in H6A?
70 to Lamar. And remember, Martin beat Lamar 55-3 or something like that. I mean, beat him just an absolute beatdown. And now, Martin was up on SGP at 28-14. I sent you a text message taking my victory lap, like, look at that. Then all of a sudden, SGP scores 35 second half points and wins that game handily, 56-42. Now Haltom is looking at things because Haltom doesn't have very good tiebreakers against some of those teams. And now that Lamar is in the mix, we have 6 teams, Ward, that all control their own destiny, from Arlington Bowie all the way down to Arlington Lamar. If you win 2 games, your last 2 games, you're in. Now they all play each other, and some of them have a Grand Prairie or Sam Houston. But all of them will control their destiny. It is absolutely crazy.
That's all you want. That's all you want. Makes for an easy speech before a game. Makes for a real easy speech.
And I have this very weird thing on the dump board, because part of what I do on the dump is I rank the teams from 1 to 8, 1 to 7, 1 to 9, depending on your district size. And going into this week, I had Haltom 4, Arlington Martin 5, and both teams lost. Bowie lost. Bowie beat Haltom, and SGP beat Arlington Martin, but because Arlington Lamar beat Arlington, the most likely tiebreaker now is a tiebreaker that does not benefit Haltom, because all Arlington Lamar has to do now is beat Arlington and get into a 3-way tie with Haltom and Arlington, because they already beat or Haltom beat them by 7, but Martin will have a good tiebreaker on Arlington if they win that game. So it's one of those situations where Haltom now is looking at things, because they lost to Arlington by the max, that they're in the negative already, and they're done. They can't do anything else with that. So if that 3-way tiebreaker happens with Arlington, Martin, Haltom, who I had in the playoffs, I had to pull out of the playoffs despite nothing, and I had to put Arlington Martin, because I think Arlington Martin is going to beat Arlington. But I've told you for the last 4 weeks, I think Arlington Martin is going to win. They can't get a win yet, Ward.
No, they can't. They can't quite figure it out. This whole district's got you tongue-tied.
SGP still has Haltom, and they still have Bowie left, so they could theoretically win district if they beat Bowie. That they win the district. If they lose out, they're out. So they're in a situation where their ceiling is winning district, and their floor is not even making the playoffs.
It's packing the pads. And this whole district's got you tongue-tied over there. You're getting tired of H6A confusing your tongue, spitting out all sorts of crazy.
It's confusing my brain, too, because if you look at my picks, I can't figure this district out. Arlington Lamar will lose by 50 and then win to get 70 the next week.
That's what I'm saying. It's not like, oh, man, we're just barely losing. These teams are giving up ridiculous points. The only one I'm confident in is Bowie, and they could still lose the district, but Bowie's just playing so great offensively. I don't know, man. It's crazy. And then if you want to switch over to 4-5A Division II, last week we were saying, well, what Emerson, will they play hard the rest of the way? Because it looks like they're just about out. Kendall Miller answered that question real quick because they did play hard and they beat Melissa, and now they're right in the mix here.
We gave you the scenario last week where I was like, Emerson is basically done. We got the shovel out for them, and we said they're basically done. They have to have three things happen. The three very unlikely things happen. They got to beat Melissa, which I didn't think was very likely. They needed Prosper Walnut Grove to beat Lovejoy, and then they needed Melissa to lose another game so they could be just alone in a tie. I was like, these three things are all not going to happen. Well, all of a sudden, two of those three things have happened. They still don't have any control over things because now it's Walnut Grove and Melissa. But now Melissa, if they lose to Prosper Walnut Grove Ward, Melissa, they're gone. They're done. This is a team that was been in our top 3 to 5 all year, and they've only lost to Lovejoy, previously to that. Then all of a sudden they lose to Walnut Grove. If they lose one more, they're done. Or they lose to Emerson, they lose one more, they're done.
And the way Cam Newton and Walnut Grove is playing, it's almost a daggone toss-up over there. By the way,
in Walnut Grove Ward, they're either going to win district or get fourth and have to play Argyle in the first round. Well, what is that? I mean, you're going to win district or you're going to play Argyle in the first round of the playoffs. One of these two things, first or fourth.
So there will be excitement in these last 2 weeks, just in those three districts alone. By the way, speaking of Walnut Grove, go ahead and throw out your one and only flower out here. We don't have a lot of flowers to give out, but Diggs has a special flower, long distance dedication.
I should have had a little thing and asked Luke Watkins if he'll go to homecoming with me or something, because he performed. He had his best game of the year when we gave him the fantasy nod, and then your guy Damian Crow had his best game of the year. People are watching this and they're like, we got to perform for this. We got to perform for this. We need to start getting it out there. I think, Ward, I'm saying this. We're kind of pulling the curtain back. I can see why you'd be a little bit hesitant on this. You're going to be like, Dave, we're not going to talk about this on the air. I could see this becoming an NBC segment at some point, just because of the excitement around it. People are talking about this. It's just three players, just no big deal. We're not doing fancy points. I know you want to do fancy points. You want to make this complex. You want to start getting this PPR.
Exactly.
You want punt return yards and all this.
Because kickers involved,
all that kind of stuff. But Ward, you're going to see when we have our fantasy. I did a little bit of a trick on you. I'm going to go a little bit of Taysom Hill on you this week, and like you did Legend Bay on me this last week. The running back who's a quarterback. I think I might have a wide receiver who's also could be quarterback at some point. But Walnut Grove winning that game and getting Luke Watkins all of those yards, they get flowers. Wakeland deserves flowers as well, Ward. I mean, I wrote them off. I said they're done. Yeah. They had 50 yards against Frisco Reedy a few weeks ago. It's like, how you cannot move the ball. I watched them get destroyed by McKinney North at Kukendall. And then Lone Star.
50 yards on one play.
Lone Star.
Oh, those receivers were having a ball out there. They got 50 yards on one play in that game. Yeah,
Jaden Maples is like the light switch came on. You see this every now and then. It's like the light switch has come on for this team, and they are looking like Wakeland from a couple of years ago. But Ward, it's kind of a weird thing because if you look at the bracketology of this, they would actually benefit from being fourth. Even though you don't want to see West Mesquite in the first round, that's a very tough game. But if we were just saying before last week, give me Lone Star or West Mesquite, who would you take?
I would take West Mesquite probably. But now
you take West Mesquite over Lone Star?
Oh no, I take Lone Star. No, I'd rather. Yeah, exactly.
So the fact that Wakeland, you can play West Mesquite. If you can play Lone Star, you can play West Mesquite.
Yeah, exactly.
But in the second round, you avoid Highland Park. So you're going fourth. You have a tougher first round game, but you have an easier second round game because then you're dealing with Midlothian, Red Oak, or like a Lake Belton, and they've been playing each other for years. And I know you hated when we were having the Lake Belton and Killeen teams as part of our wider area, and then they were calling you saying, Ward, we need to get Killeen inside high school sports out here, man. We got an NBC affiliate out here in Killeen, and you're like, no,
No, not going to happen. But what you're saying is Wakeland has proven they can beat a top tier team, and so to stay away from an elite team, go ahead and finish fourth and take care of a top tier team, and then stay away from elite. I got you. By the way, a shout out to the Wakeland offensive line. The reason Maples looked so good, from what I was shooting, is he was just standing there all day. He could have picked his receiver left and right to find him, and also Davian Gross went out little into the first quarter and didn't play the whole rest of the game. So that was a factor as well. But still, shout out to that offensive line. They played awesome out there.
Or how was that a factor? I mean, does he play defense too?
He doesn't
Because
play defense.
That's really the problem at the end of the day.
He didn't play defense. He didn't.
I
mean,
maybe he wouldn't have fumbled at the 2-yard line, but the way that game was going, I think that game seemed divine. Like that was just going to go to Wakeland some way or another.
Good point.
But those games where it seems like every year it was like Reedy that had the magic a couple of years ago. Then Lone Star got the magic with that Blackstone kind of Hail Mary against Reedy. It's like they took it back.
Right.
And now Wakeland has got the karma jug in them, man. It is something with those Star games on Thursday night.
Something's going on out there. All right, let's get into some Week 10 games, shall we? Let's start off where we always start off, 3-6A. We got Legacy and Lake Ridge. They're both trying to figure out who's going to be that last squad in there. Who's it going to be? Who's that last squad?
Well, basically, this is the last remaining tiebreaker that we have to break. After this, 3-6A is completely done. But the only hypothetical is that Lake Ridge can beat Legacy, and then Lake Ridge can beat Boswell, and then kind of get a tie with Legacy. That's kind of the only way that this district isn't the way it is. Lake Ridge already lost to Weatherford. It was kind of a funny game, Ward, because I was doing my research on this, and the Dallas Morning News had Lake Ridge beating Weatherford 69-0. And in this district, all of a sudden you're like, that gets your attention because we've seen that a couple of times because we saw Boswell in Mansfield was like 42-41, like, and then all of a sudden, Crowley comes back in and kind of dusts Mansfield. So I had to get some more information, but called my guy Nolan Ruth, and he was on the case, and he let me know that Weatherford actually won the game in overtime 34-28. Max Prep said it wrong too. I'm like trying to figure out, it's just one of those scores that seems unbelievable given Lake Ridge's last couple of years. But I think Mansfield Legacy is going to take care of business and win this game, and therefore we may not talk about 3-6A again. Maybe we should just go ahead and talk about North Crowley now, so we don't have to talk about it next week and free up some spaces for some other teams. But this district, I think, is pretty much done now. This is the last game that gives us a little bit of intrigue. I think Legacy will take care of business. Then we'll be done with 3-6A.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up North Crowley. There was an intern that was talking to one of our guys, Jerome. She goes to Boswell. She was like, I want to do a little stand-up at this game. We have a game this week. I think it shouldn't be too much of a problem. We're playing North Crowley. I think we should probably win. Obviously doesn't know a lot about sports. But she's like, I'm a cheerleader, so I should be able to break away, and I'll just do a stand-up in front of a happy crowd and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, man, I said, you should tell her to do something pregame. She said, no. He said, I did. I told her over and over again. You do know North Crowley's first or second, or the second or third ranked team, depending on who you talk to. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I just think we're going to do good. And finally, we're both of us are texting her at halftime the score 50-0. I said, how'd that stand-up go for you? Do all right there? Good grief. All right. That was just a quick one. She learned the hard way. 4-6A, we got Trinity taking on Justin Northwest. What your thoughts on this one? Because it looks like Trinity's heading back over to Northwest ISD Stadium where they had success against Byron Nelson and took them down. Tell me what you think about this one.
I know you were complaining last week, Ward, because you said I guess we put a Waxahachie on film like 5 or 6 straight weeks, and it seems like Justin Northwest keeps finding their way to our games of the week and keeps finding our way onto TV because it's like but they keep losing and they keep losing. Competitive, like 2 or 3 score game. Southlake took care of business, but in the middle, it's like these 2 or 3 score games. And it's funny because all of a sudden this district got turned upside down a little bit because Keller, it's like the rise of Keller again. Keller beat Timber Creek 38-0.
Yeah,
I still don't see a way that Keller is going to get into the playoffs. It would be at this point, it would be like Justin Northwest would have to lose this game and then lose to Timber Creek by like 38 or something, and then we'd have a coin flip. That's the only way that Keller could get into it. But you know what, Ward? What I've learned, crazier things have happened. Justin Northwest they're just like that little gnat. We just can't, Southlake kind of swatted at him and beat him. And now Byron Nelson kind of swatted at him and beat him. Now Trinity is going to swat at him and beat him again. But again, Trinity is that team that seems to be playing everybody in this district to a 2-score game. So if they mess around with Justin Northwest, all of a sudden Northwest could steal a game that they shouldn't have steal, and all of a sudden now Trinity's looking at LD Bell in week 11, or like they're still in, but all of a sudden their playoff seeding could be completely compromised by this. But I think Trinity, even though I don't trust their defense, I think they're going to. This is going to be like a 2-hour game. This is where you're going to get a little extra money out of your videographers, because you're like, okay, you're done by 9.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take.
You get to go have a good dinner.
Exactly. I'll take that game for sure. All right, we're moving on to 5-6A. We kind of know these two teams have had similar past in district play. They both can't beat Capel. So Capel's our number 1 squad. They both beat everybody else. They both have easy games at the end of the. They got Braswell and one's got Little Elm. So here's where we find out who's going to finish in second. It's at Louisville, so they'll have a little Fighting Farmer, their hard hats and little bone hats or whatever they wear over there. They'll be out there ready to cheer them on. So what do you feel about this one?
Well, I wish we could have some sad piano music, because I was informed that our good friend Louisville PA guy, he does all kinds of bits, is going to retire from the Louisville PA after this season. So, Godspeed, Louisville PA guy. I can't stand that guy, by the way. Like, I just
he talks during the play,
yeah.
He talks during the play.
Talks during the play, talks before the play, talks after the play. He always works in a Hutto Hippo reference into every game. He gets in trouble for making bad jokes at Allen's expense and things like that. He called it Krakatoa Stadium at one point. Got some very angry letters from the Allen School Board. But we're going to miss you, Louisville PA guy. So sorry about that. But at least you get a good game to kind of end your slate of Louisville ISD games. Louisville last week, Ward, it got my eye when they were beating Hebron with 36-0 at halftime. They were just putting it to them.
Tanel Hill was
and that was after the week before. It's like they figured it out against Flower Mound. It's like all of a sudden they're starting to lean on the running game. Ward, I think they're listening to this podcast. I think they've said, okay, those two generic guys on the podcast keep saying we need to run the ball. Maybe we need to run the ball a little bit more. And then all of a sudden they're running the ball. I'm like, this is working for us here. I think that is your formula to beating Denton Geyer, because you take the air out of the ball, you keep the ball away from Sperry, you limit it to 3 or 4 possessions. All of a sudden, it's 28-14 at halftime, because I don't think Geyer can stop the run. Capel was able to light him up on the run. So I think Denton Geyer's going to win this game, because I don't trust Louisville, but I see the path board. I see if Louisville can stick with what they've been doing, they could maybe pull out a 34-31 kind of a game. But I don't trust them, so I think Denton Geyer's going to win 28-21 or something. But I'm cheering for Louisville. I want to see Louisville win this game. They need one more for Louisville PA guy to say goodbye to him.
One more for him. This is another week for me to give a shout out to D'Angelo King over there at Louisville. Not only is he getting the pick sixes for him over there, but he got a punt return for 6 this week. The guy's a playmaker, and like you said, they're playing hard. And I was talking to Pat today. If you look at the brackets right now, since Allen won, it looks like they play Allen. And those two kind of teams, they feel so similar to me. The quarterbacks and receivers aren't going to do much for you. It's going to be the trenches and the running game. And I don't know. That might actually be interesting. I get tired of seeing the same teams play each other all the time, and it looks like these guys play just about every single year. It feels like to me, but it might be interesting to see this year, because they both seem kind of similar to me. All right, you want to move on to 6-6A? Let's do it.
No, I think well, let's just have you talk about 6-6A, and
No,
I'm going to
you're
tap out on this one. I don't know if I have the heart to. It's
you
just too
gotta have
raw,
the heart.
Ward. It's just too Ward.
It's
Yeah,
too new for
I
you.
mean, we taped this after the week, and people are seeing this. They're like, "Oh, it's been 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
Surely Diggs can get over it." Well, they don't realize that Ward spends like a half a week doing post production on this stuff. So you on YouTube can see me look this. I look like Jason from Friday the 13th series, but then Ward gets in there with you got to go frame by frame to make me
Yep.
try to look good and make my hair look flowing long instead of greasy and bad. So it's just too fresh for me right now, Ward. But really, in 6-6A, there are still a lot of path forward for Rock Hill, for Plano, for McKinney, and Plano East, despite the fact that Plano beat Plano East. But Plano and Rock Hill, for me, it seems like a bad matchup for Plano because Rock Hill has a really good defense. I think a little bit better defense than Plano has. And I don't think Rock Hill is going to make the mistakes that Plano East did in that game. I mean, Plano East had 3 turnovers in that game. They had a snap that set them up. Plano East had a Hail Mary, which you don't get every day, which you can go vote for. I encourage everybody to go to the plays of the week and
There's also a
give your
Plano play
give
in
your
there if you want to vote
Panthers.
for that. You can vote for the
Don't worry
Wildcats
about
too if you want. Go ahead.
don't worry about that. But I think Rock Hill, and this game's at Prosper, and Plano is a team that actually has a decided home field advantage, just like Plano East is a team that plays much better at home than they do on the road. This just has the feel for me that Rock Hill is going to find a way to win this game. Rock Hill is a team that still controls their own destiny because Rock Hill plays Plano this week and they play McKinney last week, and Rock Hill is on a bye. So they've had 2 weeks to kind of, reinvent themselves, get healthy, figure things out. Watch Plano in this game, and it seems like when you've had the bye week, you come off the bye, you're a little bit better in this district. So I think Rock Hill is going to win this game. I like Rock Hill in the upset. Now this doesn't help Plano East because Plano East has lost the tiebreaker with Rock Hill, Plano, and Plano East because Plano beat them by 10, which means that they're already at -3. They're locked in, and if you're negative with one team, you can't win. So they're done. But what Plano East can do is take matters into their own hands. And this kind of reminds me, Ward, of last season, because if you remember last season, I was very crestfallen because very early in the year, Plano East lost to Hebron, and I was like, we're done. And then all of a sudden, at the end of at week 9, week 10, they beat Marcus, and they overcame that. And this kind of gives me that feel against McKinney, that if Plano East can somehow find a way to win this game by 6 or more, now they've overcome that loss against Plano, and they could potentially get third place. I think Plano East is going to pull an upset here. I think they've had it's to me like the law of averages, Ward. How many times can you, unless you're Alito is really good at having 3 turnovers a game for 5 or 6 straight games. They do that. But
They're
Plano
broken.
East, surely they're not going to have 3 or more turnovers for a third straight game, Ward. Surely.
Don't call
Surely.
me Shirley.
Surely.
First of all, do not call me Shirley. Second of all, it probably won't happen. By the way, shout out to McKinney, especially Riley Pettigene and his family. We had him on the show this past week. What a great family! They're really engaging. I really loved the father Duke Pettigene until he was leaving and told me, "Yeah, by the way, I used to play at Syracuse." I was like, "Oh, why did you have to tell me Syracuse? Why?" God, I hate Syracuse. But he's still a great guy, and it's Syracuse basketball I can't stand. Football is whatever. So
Okay.
he's
Are
still
you,
all
are you
right
getting
with that.
back to those old Georgetown, Syracuse
Yes,
days? You
exactly.
can't
And
can't handle that. That
it got
the
me
Carrier
fuming
Dome.
anger. I can't deal with that. I lived in Buffalo for 7 years. I went to Georgetown Syracuse game 7 times. We lost 6 of the 7. And I hated the drive there, and I despised the drive back. And I don't even know why we're talking about it. But anyway, McKinney, Plano East, that's where Diggs will be. Go talk to him.
All of a sudden, Big East basketball breaks out on the podcast.
Exactly. It always has to happen, doesn't it? All right. Is this it for Berkner? They got to do it here. They got to beat
Got to do it
Jesuit,
here.
or else they might as well pack everything up. And do they have how do you see them winning this game if they can?
First of all, I don't think they can because
Okay.
Jesuit looks like they figured it out in the second half against Richardson and finally got that offense going. And Ward, I think you made the very insightful digging for wisdom insight that Jesuit is one of those teams that gets better as the season goes on. You know, you look at them early in the season, and they always have a head scratcher. Week 10 or week 11, they're on all gears, and all of a sudden you're filming them in like the second or third week of the playoffs, and they just find a way. That's what Jesuit does. Berkner is going to be playing for their lives because remember that Berkner and Richardson game? Richardson only won that game by one. So in any sort of tiebreaker situation with Jesuit, Berkner, and Richardson, Berkner is not going to need much to get out of the hole. So Berkner wins this game, they're going to get out of that hole. And given that you'll probably have three teams for two spots, Richardson is going to be scoreboard watching this like crazy because all of a sudden their hard work can just kind of go up and smoke. But I just don't think Berkner has the offense. You got to go score for score with a team like Jesuit unless you can completely shut Jesuit down. And I don't think Berkner has the defense to completely shut Jesuit down. So I think that Jesuit's going to win a 35-21, 35-28 sort of game. But you know me, I love Coach Brian over there. I'm cheering for Berkner. I just don't believe that this team can do it with what we've seen so far.
And Charlie Peters has been kind of wildly inconsistent. So let's see what he can do here down the stretch. Maybe he'll get better as the season goes on.
Berkner will have to get a pick six or something. I mean, that you got to do something big like that. You got to have to get a punt return, a kickoff return, and their biggest explosive weapon went to your fantasy football team this past week, and ultimately ended up in Richardson. And really, you usually think one player is not that big of a deal. You lose a receiver, you can get a receiver, but Berkner is really missing that explosive element to their offense, and that was Damian Crow. And without him, I feel like they're just kind of a team that gets 4 or 5 yards, and they have to play perfect. You can't have any sort of mistakes. You can't have any sort of negative plays. And Berkner just doesn't have the offense to do that.
Yeah, and usually when you lose a player like that, he goes to a school south or wherever. Not somewhere where you're still going to see him at the market, picking out tomatoes and stuff. Hey, why can't you come back? He's right down the block now. But all right, let's talk 8-6A. This is a Thursday night game. It's probably the one or two games that are worthwhile on Thursday night that mean something. South Grand Prairie against Halton. Tell me what you think is going to happen in this one. It's at one of your favorite stadiums, Birdville FAAC.
I can't stand Birdville FAAC. I can do the AAC. Why can't we put this at the AAC? But you put the F on it, and all of a sudden they take the fun out of the FAAC, and it's just not very fun there. I mean, I have like nightmares of going to game. I think it was like I went to a Hebron Cedar Hill game, and I had to go sit outside because they don't have any press box room in there. It was like December. It's like 30 degrees out there, and I've got my laptop and coat, and I'm just typing these things because they couldn't handle the crowd. But South Grand Prairie, I feel like they've been right below Arlington Bowie as being the most consistent team. But you also look at South Grand Prairie, and they got destroyed by Arlington. So it's like, how good are they? But I feel like they've been just a little bit more consistent. Haltom beat Arlington Martin. That's really been kind of the feather in their cap. But right now, like we talked about, everybody seems to be beating Arlington Martin right now. And you're talking about Bob Wager watching this stuff, right? Just kind of going gray prematurely in this game. This game is a game that I could see either team winning just because if you look at their resume, you can say, well, Haltom, they did this, Haltom beat Martin, but South Grand Prairie beat Martin as well. I think South Grand Prairie just has too much offensive firepower. It seems like that's been the thing that's really been missing from Arlington Martin, despite the fact that at times they've been explosive, that they haven't been consistently explosive. South Grand Prairie has been consistently explosive. So then the question is, can Haltom go score for score with them? I don't think they can. So I think South Grand Prairie, a little bit of a favorite for me on the road on a Thursday night on Halloween, Ward.
Halloween. Dress up nice.
All Hallows Eve.
South Grand Prairie. People come out there like a minion or some sort of funny little thing. And I'll get you on the TV if I'm the one shooting it. I don't know. It might be James. By the way, you brought
Meteorologist Ward texted me that it might be raining.
It's supposed to be raining. It's got 50% chance. Speaking about rain, you triggered my memory when you said, because I was like, I don't remember having a bad time at Birdville except for one playoff game where it was miserable rain, and it was DeSoto Hebron, so maybe it's the one you're thinking of. And it went into overtime, and DeSoto had Cyrus the Virus Gray on the team, and it was an overtime game. And I remember I had my buddy Derek Jackson with me. He was working with us at the time, and he said, yeah, I know it's freezing out here. We're going to go back and forth. I'll shoot the first, and then you go warm up in the car. Or I was going to shoot the first, and he'd shoot the second. I'm shooting the first quarter. It's coming to an end. My hands are freezing, and I'm looking. He's nowhere to be found. I shoot the second quarter. I go at halftime. He said, "I'm not coming out of this car." And I was like, "Golly, I guess I'm shooting the whole thing, huh?" And now I can picture you probably sitting up there. You were outside. If you were in the elements, it was a rainy day that day too. But it was a fun game, though. It was a really interesting. It was an overtime game, and it has nothing to do with 2024. But whenever it was, that was a great game.
Whenever we can talk about Cyrus Gray, I mean, come on,
Yeah, exactly.
that guy was special. Did he
Cyrus
get a
the
bobblehead
Viper.
award?
He did not. We weren't even doing that back then. But he did get a scholarship to Texas A&M.
All
right.
Retroactively, would you have given him a bobblehead if
Yeah,
you can go back and kind of fix all that stuff? Okay.
Absolutely.
Cyrus, you deserve a retroactive, bobblehead. So
if I could have had ideas,
add that to the budget, Ward. I'm like spending all of your money every show.
Wow.
Last week, I've extended the bobbleheads to the campfire, and now I'm doing legacy bobbleheads.
We've given 2 legacies out. Myles Garrett got a legacy one, and Marcus Smart. But man, you're talking about doing it. If I got to make up for everybody over the last 27 years, whoo, we're gonna have to take it out of your budget. All right, talk to me about. We're skipping over 9-6A because that thing's settled and we know what's going on there. No big time games. 10-6A, there is 2 big time games, including this North Forney versus Longview game, and Longview's proven that some teams can get them in this district. Is North Forney one of the teams that can? Speaking about a legend, a legacy legend, probably. We can give one to legacy.
The legend, the legend of the Bay. But you have to remember, I'm still a little bit jaded because I saw Plain Louise beat North Forney, and they scored. They were pretty much able to run at will on North Forney, and then you look at Rockwell Heath was able to pretty much run at will at North Forney, and then Forney was able to run at will at North Forney, but North Forney was able to outscore them and kind of go score for score for score. North Forney has still not played Rockwell, still not played Longview, so they still have the toughest part of their schedule coming up. I don't think, given that Longview can, with Boozy over there, Boozy Washington, and some of their really explosive talent, I don't think North Forney can go score for score with Longview. I think we're going to get a lot of fireworks, a lot of action in this game. But I think Longview is going to win this game by 2 scores, kind of a 56-42 kind of a game, because I don't think North Forney is going to be able to ever get a stop on Longview. But Longview has enough good athletes on the defensive side of the ball. They'll get a stop or 2 on them. Legend won't be a complete. I think this would have been a good week to take Legend Bay, because I think you're going to have to get a lot of yards on them. And they will. They're able to make big explosive plays on Longview. I just don't think they can do it consistently. That's what happened to Rockwell. Rockwell couldn't do it consistently. Right. Rockwell had a couple of 21-point runs in that game against Longview, but still, the fact that Longview had 60 or 70, they just couldn't be consistent. And that's what Longview is able to do with that offensive line and those cadre of running backs, that they can just keep pounding you 7 to 10 yards of play. North Forney has no answer for that.
I got you. And this one should have a pretty awesome crowd. They always do. Rockwell versus Rockwell Heath. They go back and forth, kind of like the game I was at last week, the Mounds Showdown. They just constantly arguing with each other, but loud enough you can hear. Big crowd in this game. At the beginning of the year, we weren't sure how much it would mean, but now it kind of means something.
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot, because Rockwell, again, still, depending on your perspective on this, Rockwell could fall to 3 losses. If they lose here to Heath, they lose to North Forney, then they're sitting at 3 losses, and potentially, maybe could be out, depending on how tiebreakers work, could be on the outside looking in. Heath is basically desperate, looking at, remember, they lost to overtime to Tyler Legacy, and that's just kind of their albatross right now, that they got to try to overcome that. I still see a scenario, Ward, where Heath is going to make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to beat Rockwell. I think what's going to happen is that Forney is going to have to beat Tyler Legacy this week, and then Heath versus Forney is going to have to be a game where they get a 3-way tiebreaker situation, and Heath's going to have to win that game by enough. But Heath looks good enough to win this game, and they certainly look good enough to beat Forney. They should have beat North Forney. They should have beat Longview. We talked about that at the beginning. That kind of that pick. That strip fumble, the scoop and score kind of a play. Although the ball never hit the ground, Ward, so I can't say you really scooped it at that point, but you did get a strip and score. But that sounds like a completely different podcast as well. So Heath, I know it seems weird, Ward, but Heath is 3-5, but playing really, really good football. It's like they're peaking at the right time. But I think Rockwell is just going to have too much offensive firepower. I think we're going to see a shootout. Heath got in that shootout against North Forney, and they couldn't They couldn't handle it.
Couldn't keep
And I
up,
think
yeah.
they're not going to be able to handle it against Rockwell either. But I do think they're going to have the athletes to handle it against Forney, which could force that three-way tie next week, and then get Heath, slide them on in, Ward. 2 and 4 in
Slide 'em
district.
in there.
We're going to find them
Put 'em
find
in
them a way
there.
to the playoffs.
Push them in somehow. All right, 11-6A. We got these guys are both in Waxahachie and Lancaster, but this is for third and fourth. By the way, this is probably one of the few weeks of the year that we're not shooting Waxahachie. We should be at this game, but holy cow, I've shot enough of the Indians to do a 5-part series on them if I need to. I can do a documentary on each and every player on the team. But this game's in Lancaster. What do you think?
Coach Dollison, you can call him up there for you when you're getting your banquet going on in February and you need kind of a
Exactly.
videographer. He'll produce it for you. He'll give you a good rate, like $5,000. He'll
Exactly.
put together a nice little package for you. Put a little bit of music in there, maybe a little Seminole Indian chant or something. I
There you
don't know,
go.
maybe a little Seminole wind, a little John Anderson there. He'll do that for you. It's $5,000. Maybe I could be undervaluing you, but you'll give Tollison a good price, so maybe it's
I'll give him.
$10,000. Contact him. He'll take care
I'll
of your
drop it at
business.
$5,000. We'll put together a
Fi-
10-minute piece for you. Put some stank on
Do
it.
it.
All right, go ahead. Tell me what
Do
you
it
think
for the
about it.
banquet. But this game, if you remember, we kind of talked about it for a while.
Yeah, that's right.
This is my dub podcast right here. This is the people have spoken game. This game means nothing for district. It means nothing for seeding. Whoever wins this game, it's third and fourth place. But you got D2 in Lancaster, you got D1 in Waxahachie, so it doesn't matter as far as that flip flopping goes. But I guess technically with Lancaster, they could beat DeSoto next week and go D1, D2, go first seed, second seed, but still not going to matter, I don't think, because you're pretty much looking at playing each other if you can get by Longview, who's going to have to play Longview in the second round. But Ward, they kept saying Ward. I'm not going to say who they are, but it's Alonzo. It's Alonzo. That
Okay.
Alonzo guy. He's like that. He made me start chopping myself 2 weeks ago. He gets my hair gray, except then he makes you have to start video editing me because we can't have me have gray hair on such a prestigious podcast like this. But this game is for the people who have spoken. They keep saying, I need to go see Waxahachie in person. I just need to see it. Once I see it, I'll understand. I'll understand what I'm missing out. And what happens? They shake a 20-yard field goal. They would have lost. They would have lost the skyline.
Yeah.
I'd go see them. I'm not impressed. And then they're telling me not Alonzo in this case, but they are telling me that Meyer was hurt and was surprised he played. Well, if he's hurt, they're not going to beat Lancaster. Like they can't beat Lancaster. And then what does Lancaster do this week? They go out and destroy Mesquite. Give me the Tigers, Ward. Give me the Tigers.
He's taking them. Oh my goodness. Alonzo's
Taking them
making
all
you
year.
chop yourself, man. Oh my.
And you know what I did this week, Ward?
Chop
I loaded Waxahachie below Lancaster in the rankings. I'm done with Waxahachie.
You've had it.
Which means I've just set up a video podcast that you're probably marking, and all of a sudden I'm going to be viral again on WaxahatcheeIndians.com because I'm burying Waxahachie. I saw them.
You saw, but you didn't choose the right week. You didn't choose the right week.
Go get a 20-yard field goal.
You got to shoot them 5 times like I do. You got to shoot them 5 times like I do, and then you'd understand. Go see them 5 times. Then you'll understand what's going on. By the way, if I could do the kind of editing you thought I could, don't you think I'd take out at least one of these chins? Maybe one of them? No, I'm leaving all 3 of them in there for everybody to see because I can't do the great editing you think I can. We're moving down to 5A Division 1. We're skipping over 3 and 4 because those places are already settled. We're going to go right to 5.
That on that old man videographer Tinder websites, they like the double chins there. So I think you're trying to keep all of your chin options open for
keep my chin up.
Keep your chin up.
All right. What do you think about? We talked a little bit about this. Frisco against Frisco Reedy. Reedy's got to stop this mess, man. They got to go out and they got to take care of business right away. None of this 14 points in the fourth to win it.
You know what I've learned about District 55 AD1 Ward?
Nothing.
I don't know a dang thing about this district. I don't know a dang. Frisco Reedy should win this game. I mean, but Frisco Reedy should have beat Lebanon Trail, and that game was 35-28 in the fourth quarter. Frisco Reedy should have beat Frisco Heritage to a pulp. In that game, they need 14 points in the fourth quarter to win that game. Frisco Reedy should beat Frisco on a Thursday night at the Star, but crazy things happen on Thursday night at the Star.
We're trying to build up for this Lone Star game, and they won't let it. Am I
It's
right?
Halloween, Ward. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be a festival of
Spooky.
spookiness.
We're
I'm
trying to
gonna pick
lead
Frisco
up,
Reedy
man.
because I think Frisco's gonna win.
We're
Like
trying.
that's just all you can do.
We're
I
trying
have to play
hard to
reverse
build up for.
psychology.
We're trying hard to build up for this Reedy Lone Star game at the end of the year and put all the eggs in the basket here, but they just won't let us. Nobody will let us build up
It
for
is
it,
a
man.
race to the bottom in District 5A, and everybody else is rising up. Wakeland, rise up. McKinney North, rise up. Frisco, rise up. Heritage, everybody's rising up. But Reedy and Lone Star, whew,
Well, they'll show you this
I don't
week, man.
understand.
They'll knock the spook at you. They'll show you. They'll get real spooky on you Halloween at the Star. All right, there's a district title coming up. West Mesquite against Newman Smith. West Mesquite, they. How about that? Is that win last week? Is that gonna knock Creekview into another 21 game losing streak just because they had eight games off where they're not thinking about losing? All of a sudden, West Mesquite stomps them out, runs for 380 some yards on them, and now they're like, all right, let's just go back to losing 21 straight. Or did Creekview do something and now they understand what's going on? And now we got another character team for them to pick on a little bit. Or is this one going to be a better game?
That's crazy because if you remember back in week 1, we had Newman Smith versus Prosper Walnut Grove, and all of a sudden Walnut Grove wins that game like 60-7 or something. I'm just an absolute blowout, and we're like, what's going on with Prosper Walnut Grove? Or Newman Smith must just be absolutely horrible. But it turns out, that Walnut Grove has a little something as we've seen. But Newman Smith, to me, what is telling for me, and I know we got people, like my guy J Mac, who says you should not apologize for wins. I think you're on that team where you don't apologize for wins. I apologize for wins. You gotta give me style points. I want style points. If you're gonna be talked about on this podcast, you have to have the style points. Newman Smith should have got some style points against R.L. Turner. They ain't give me any style points. I think Newman Smith's better than Creekview. I think they'll make it a little bit more interesting than Creekview did. But West Mesquite is playing such good football, and Ward, they believe. Coach Jackson's got them out there. They're willing to run through a brick wall for him right now. And they believe, and they don't know what it's like to lose. They don't think they can lose. I don't think Newman Smith has that level of belief in them. Give me West Mesquite by 3 scores.
3 scores. And they beat Creekview by what? 5 scores. So you're right. All right, 7-5A. I think the top dogs are all playing themselves. Centennial's going to go play Highland Park, but Midlothian Red Oak is the one we're focused on because this one maybe tell us what we have going into the playoffs with these two teams. Can they win a couple games in the postseason?
Yeah, Midlothian's backloaded. They got Highland Park next week. They got Midlothian this week. And both of these teams are the teams that have completely broken Burleson Centennial's heart, as both of them had walk-off wins at the last play of the game to beat Burleson Centennial in completely unlikely fashion. So that doesn't really tell. Like, these are two teams, Ward, that I have trust issues with. Like I need to go to therapy. This is kind of my therapy, trying to dig in for wisdom, because Midlothian, they were down to 3 touchdowns to Burleson Centennial in the 4th quarter, and then they figure it out. In Red Oak, they were like down the whole game to Burleson Centennial, but they figured it out in the 4th quarter after Red Oak kind of made me believe in them after getting 72 on Cleburne. I don't know what to make of this. Pure athlete-wise, I feel like Red Oak has got more athletes than Midlothian, but Midlothian seems to find a way to win these games, Ward. Red Oak found a way to beat Burleson Centennial this past week. Yeah. So I think it's a little bit of an upset, Ward, but give me Midlothian.
By the way, that was one of 3 games I was thinking of as my game. If I had an extra shooter, I was thinking either the Mound Showdown, 1-point game, the Alito Richland game I was thinking about going out to. That was an overtime game. And the Red Oak Burleson Centennial, which is where I would have gone if Burleson Centennial didn't ask me for a background check and Social Security numbers through untapped websites that I'm not throwing out there. I was like, no, you'll just go uncovered until you play on the road because I'm not throwing that number out there. But all of them were quality games, and now Red Oak's ready to take on Midlothian. This is going to be a good one. We'll be at this one for sure. My guy Jason will be down there. It's down his.
By the way, I think if you grade my first week as a producer last week and that list of games I gave you,
yeah,
I think I did pretty good.
You did do pretty good. I'm very proud of you. Although you snuck that Keller Timber Creek game in there. You didn't do so good there. You could have left the 8th game off the list, and you were all
upset. Right. It was an upset. I mean,
it was an ugly
it was
upset.
in there.
Ugly
it was
upset.
Ugly, but still.
All right, 4-5A Division II. I think this is where I might be. I might go up to Melissa to see their stadium. Maybe I owe it to myself to go to that stadium once a year since it's been built. But I'll be
Will you
there,
get me an autograph? You go get Luke Watkins' autograph from me.
dude.
Just have
You
him
know what?
sign.
I should change my pick right now and put Luke in there with me, and maybe I'll say, "Hey, buddy, why don't you give me a little shout out?" But I've already put somebody else in there for my receiver. I should change my pick for this coming week, though. But Luke, I'm going to bring a flower to you from Diggs, only if you accept his invitation to go to homecoming. If not, then I'm going to throw it on the ground. And I'll throw it on the ground. All right. What do you think's going to happen in this game? Because Walnut Grove can score like nobody's business. Can Melissa shut them down?
I did not think that Walnut Grove could beat Lovejoy after seeing kind of Anna handle them in a way. They beat Emerson by one, and it was a 2-point conversion, and then we see Lovejoy just completely obliterate Frisco Emerson, and then Walnut Grove finds a way in the fourth quarter to win this game. But surely Melissa's not missing the playoffs. Could we live
Surely.
in a world where Melissa? I know you don't want me calling you Shirley. You don't want to be like Leslie Nielsen
I'd rather you not
anymore
call
and
me
being called
Melissa either,
Shirley
or Anna, or
repeated.
Melissa.
No, no Melissa, no, or Anna. You don't like any of the Melissa, or Shirley, or Anna names, or the Walnut Grove, or you a Walnut Grove Wildcat. And it's so hard to pick against Walnut Grove, but I feel like every time I pick against them, they win. So I'm picking Melissa.
Picking Melissa. All right.
See what I'm doing there?
It sounds like you're telling me that you want Walnut Grove to win.
So I'm
Picking
picking
Melissa.
Melissa.
I got you. All right. We'll see.
I'll take an L
Coach,
for I'll take an L for Luke because he got a W for me. I'll take
I'll
an L
take
for
an
Luke.
L for him. That's a sweet little thing you guys got going there. All right, let's jump over to 6-5A Division II. How about our boys from Poteet, man? Are they're gonna take out Innis here and have a little faith that maybe they can get in the postseason with a little somehow push past Terrell? Talk to me.
The word on the street was that Grayson Harris went back to quarterback and that things were kind of getting a little bit better at Ennis. But Crandall, okay, we talked about it last week, that Crandall, could they overcome the Midlothian Heritage slaughter? They did, and they did so effectively. Their running back was able to come back. They looked great against Ennis. So now we got Mesquite Poteet versus Ennis. If Mesquite Poteet wins this game, they have a chance next week to play Terrell for the fourth playoff spot. And I think our little Mesquite ISD heart is cheering for that because Poteet's been bad for so long. It's kind of like with Creekview, their losing streak. We're happy to see them in the playoffs. I think we're seeing that with Poteet, but they got to go past this step. And I think they can do it because their offense has shown that they have enough firepower to go score for score. Ennis defense doesn't look like they can stop them. I think Mesquite Poteet's going to win a 49-42 game. Right now they're an underdog to Terrell for me, but the fact that they're there is basically a playoff game in week 11.
Right. And you'll be able to find out about Terrell when they take on Crandall this week, and maybe that'll give you even more faith to pick an upset if you need to. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, especially if you look at the last 2 weeks, because Terrell played Midlothian Heritage pretty competitively before Midlothian. I think that made Midlothian Heritage mad because the last 2 weeks, Midlothian Heritage is like won their games 101-3 or something similar to that. But Crandall just seems to know how to win these games. They beat Kaufman kind of in an ugly overtime game late. I think this is going to be a 28-21 kind of a game. But Crandall knows how to win these games. They've figured it out. Terrell just doesn't have that explosive firepower. They don't have the really good running back like they had last year. You could just give him the ball and know that he'll take care of it. I think Crandall takes care of business by a touchdown.
Yeah, I think Crandall's ready. They got their cobwebs shaken off them by those Midlothian Heritage Jags. All right, we're talking Decatur, Springtown as we go into the small schools. Both of these teams combined have played 9 district games, and combined they've let up 7 points. Decatur's the dum-dums that let up a touchdown to one of the teams, while Springtown, the Porcupines, shut out everybody. Now they're finally getting to play some competition in each other before finishing out Week 11 against limited competition. They probably would rather have this thing be Week 11, to be honest with you, so they can get right into the playoffs. But your thoughts on this? You can't judge anything off of, you can't do your collaboration. Well, they beat Jarvis 58-0 and they only won 60-0. I don't know what the problem is. So tell me what you got here.
I don't do for Southwest. Southwest is good enough to handle some of that stuff. But the Southwest still has to play one of them still, so a little bit left to figure out. But Decatur, when I look back at their non-district schedule, they did not look good in non-district at all. I mean, they were just getting beat up. Brock beat them by 30 or so. Springtown lost to Joshua, but it's like after that Joshua loss, they got things going. For me, I think Springtown is a little bit better. Decatur has kind of got their window dressing through these games, but now that they haven't played anybody, I think they're going to regress back to kind of how they looked in non-district. Give me Springtown to win this game by 2 scores, Ward.
It's 2 scores because it leads us into this one with Graham taking on Brock. The only loss between these two is Graham to Springtown, so that right there leads into that. But Brock threw up 80 last week. Well, Graham threw up 76 2 weeks ago. This looks like a tasty matchup here. Maybe this is finally where Brock finds out, how they really fare here in the new 4A district that they've moved up to 4A.
Do we have any Kubota dealerships in Graham? It seems like there would be a Kubota dealership in Graham or something, because Graham is the kind of, they're steers. That's what they are. They're steers.
That's
true.
You
gotta have a tractor to transport steers around, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
so.
Like you could put them in a trailer, and you gotta have your tractor to haul them out. But this is good old school country roads kind of football right here. But Graham, like you said, lost to Springtown. I feel like Brock, they played a really good non-district schedule. They already beat Decatur handily. I think Brock is going to take care of business. But one thing that gives me a little bit of pause is Graham has consistently found ways to win games like this over the last couple of years. And then you look at more recently, Graham beat Mineral Wells a little bit more than Brock beat Mineral Wells. Brock only beat him 21-0. Graham beat him like 36-0. So the Graham's defense looks like they're pretty good. I think Brock saw that and got mad and put up 80 and said, "You think you're going to shut us down? We'll show you 80." I think Brock just has a little bit more varsity experience coming back. I think they have a few more playmakers, defensive guys who can make big plays and be game changers. So give me Brock in our small school corner.
Give him Brock. All right, that leaves us with fantasy left. It didn't go well for me yet again, and that seals Diggs the victor for the whole season, because we only got 2 more weeks left, and I can't make up that kind of ground. Unless you want to try 3 games in 1 week. Pick 9 play. No, forget that. I ain't got time for all that mess. All right, so you got me.
The Players Award.
Our quarterbacks, yeah, exactly. Our quarterbacks and receivers were pretty much evenly matched. Damian Crow and my quarterback, Legend Bay, were evenly matched with your quarterback, Jalen Brooks and Luke Watkins. But if you took me down with the running back, you went with South Grand Prairie. You doubled up with South Grand Prairie. You do a lot of doubling up. Maybe that happens again. You doubled up with South Grand Prairie.
Arlington Bowie, Ward. I stole you. I stole your plan because you went Arlington Bowie with me the week before. So I was like, okay, it's back. I'm back. Especially since you used your commissioner thing to shut down my original running back pick last week. You're like, I think you already picked him.
And then Bowers is better than he did anyway. So that's how. And then I pick a running back that's completely gassed because he ran it 41 times against Walnut Grove, and they had to try to come back against Aubrey, so they weren't going to be running. So poor Dylan Brock only got like 70 yards. Anyway, it was close for a while. Another big victory for Diggs, and he's won a championship. I'll send you your little trophy or whatever we're going to do. I think you get
a bobblehead.
I'll give you
another bobblehead. With a belt, a bobblehead with a belt. That's what I mean.
All right, we'll see what we can do with that.
Like that's the hard thing, because you guys got belts. You give out belts to your defensive champions of the week, and you give out bobbleheads to players that you think are going to go on to have some legacy at college. So just think, you combine them both, and you get Diggsy. You get your man Diggsy. A belt and a bobblehead
with long, luscious
because
hair.
I got a big head. So
that's true. Yeah. That thing can bobble. But you never say yes. You always say no to everything. So I have to smack the bobble that way. All right, let's pick your quarterbacks this week. You're going Jaden Maples, which is usually my theory. Whenever I see a guy who does great, I pick him the next week. But you used that theory. You didn't see him, but you saw what he did. And I just said his offensive line's giving him crazy time. So that might be a good pick for you.
And not only with that, it's I feel like they have to make a statement against Sherman, given what happened when they played Sherman a couple of years ago, and Sherman beat them. So I think they're going to put up big numbers. I think even if it's a game that gets as a blowout, I could see them putting up big numbers in the first half and enough to give me a win. Jaden Maples, like I said, I think he's figured it out. That offensive line is giving him protection. Maybe a couple of pieces in the offensive line are now back, and all of a sudden he's the game is slowing down for him. That's kind of one of those cliches you hear in football, but it's so true. When the game, it's like when you're running downhill and the game slows down for you, it's like you start to see these receivers and everything, and it's like slow motion. And I think that Jaden Maples has figured that out. Some of the throws he was making, were fantastic, but also his receivers are so good that he's starting to get multiple options. You got Meyer who's playing good. You got their other receiver who's playing really well, so he's got multiple options. You can't just cover one of them. Wakeland's got 3 or 4 guys who can go for 100 yards in any given week. I like it.
You like your pick there. You like your pick. Well, I'm going to use what my eyes saw, and what I saw again with Lone Star was a quarterback that was solid. He just didn't. He put up his show. He put up his points, and I'm hoping he puts them up again. He actually was throwing up how many scholarship offers he got from that game. I think he got 1 or 2. I'm trying to steal them running points too because he takes off. I hope he got 88 on the first play of the game. So I'm switching to Carice Hoyt, and we'll see how he does with Lone Star as they're playing Lebanon Trail. He may it may be a mistake. He may have to sit down in the second half, but I'm going for him anyway. Especially since when we started this thing, I had Drew Cates in there. Now, just seconds ago, while you were talking about Maples, I saw that they had the bye week, and I was like, I'm not pulling a Diggs thing. I'm getting him out of there. I get him out of there at the last second. My quick typing fingers got me a guy. It's not a lot of thought went into this. I just had to get somebody in there before the time ran out. So that's who we got.
That's a good pick, though. I mean, he had 400 or 500 yards this past week.
Yeah, he did. A lot of rushing.
Both sides of the ball.
Yep. All right, tell me what you know about my man here that you're picking from. I don't know a lot about Farmersville football, but you got Gordon Schwartz in there. Talk to me.
Gordon Schwartz. Farmersville has a high-powered offense. They're playing Kemp, who is a team that Kemp. They're going to put some points up on the board as well. So you're going to get a bit of a blowout or get a high scoring game. And then all of a sudden, it's Crum. I think I said not Kemp, Crum. But Crum is going to put some points on the board. So I think you're looking at a 49-35 game. But the Fighting Farmers like to run the ball. I'm thinking Schwartz is good for 200. I think he's going to be good for 200. Well, maybe 300. Once he finds this out, tag him, by the way. Have your social media guy tag him so they can get in the locker room and say, Diggs believes in you, 300 yards. Make it happen.
I wouldn't do that. I'm going to tag my guys. You don't have any power of that, and I got power of my guys.
I
didn't learn my lesson last week, but I'm going with Marcus Simpson because it's another one. My eyes saw it happen, so I'm going with it. Boy, this is probably a mistake because last week he ran for 30 times. For 182 yards last week. The week before, I went with Dylan Baracco. We got it 41 times. These guys are probably exhausted. What am I doing to myself? But I also know. What'd you say?
Who they're playing this week?
They're playing. Tell me it's not a bye. I thought I had saw it already. It's not a bye.
No, Ellie, it's not a bye.
Okay, I thought you were trying to scare the heck out of me. They got. Let's see. They got Capel. They got to run it because they're not going to pass it against them.
That's a dumb pick, Ward. Thank you.
It's not a dumb pick. They got to run the ball and they're going to score. Oh, they're going to do great against Capel. Another great pick for me. A dumb pick would be picking this receiver and not the receiver that I'm picking. You're going with Grayson Meyer, and we're going to do a combination here because I'm going Ryder Treadway. You made the mistake. Because Treadway has proven to be the better receiver out of the two of them. Sorry, Grayson, you're a hell of a guy. Way to go, Wizzy.
But Ryder Treadway is not going to take the ball and throw it. Meyer has been throwing the ball once or twice a game, and I think they're against Sherman. Sherman's a little bit more disciplined.
Like
I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see an 80 to 90 yard pass from Meyer.
I don't think it's going to happen at all.
Get a little bit of both. As long as he doesn't throw it to Ryder Treadway.
He's going to throw it to Treadway. I'm canceling out both of you guys. I'm canceling out both of your picks because when he throws it, he's throwing it to Treadway, and when your quarterback throws it, he's throwing it to Treadway. And Meyer will just be sitting there like, "Can I get a rock? For somebody throw me the pigskin," and it's not going to happen.
Meyer's got that Meyer pedigree, the Brennan Meyer, Grayson Meyer pedigree. I think he's going to throw for 80 and receive for 150. Give me 230.
For the whole thing. And I'm going to get myself 350, and that's where the win comes from. 350 to 230, and it doesn't really even matter anymore. You've already beat me. What the heck? I'm so upset about this. All right, Diggs. It could be inclement weather this weekend. Your thoughts on going outside the Kimbrough? Because you don't sit in the press box at these Plano East games, right? You're out there with the family.
I'm out there with the people, and Friday looks good. So I think we'll be out there. I may not be wearing shorts. I can go hoodie weather. I will not have an Inside High School Sports hoodie on because the powers that be at Game Day Productions do not believe that oversized people like me deserve 5X or 4X hoodies. It's like, Diggs, you got to get down to 3X like a normal person because we're not going to special order you anything. That's just the Inside High School Sports way. It's like you got to lose weight or we're not ordering you anything. But we will get you a hat because your head is big enough for us to put one of these hats on. But your clothes, we're not giving you anything. I had to go to a seamstress to get this on. Like, I had to go buy my own shirt and then have a seamstress.
We gave him 2 smalls and he sewed them together. Hey, look, some people have that soda weight loss, but we use motivation. As soon as this is over, get on the treadmill and we're going to get you a sweatshirt.
Or get on the treadway, the rider treadway.
That might be a wrap. That may be a wrap. We'll see you next week to wind down the season, buddy. Later.